3.
And we're live on Facebook.
Fix up my 4 pieces of hair. My head looks really terrible on the video.
Your head does?
Yeah, I look like.
Wait till you see my head.
I look like I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my hair. I'm in that awkward transition spot.
Hey, it's Friday, April 26th, 11:29.
Welcome.
And we haven't been here for a while. I don't even know. Do we have a name for what we do here?
Nonsense?
Nonsense.
Friday nonsense.
Friday nonsense.
Well,
so here we are, another Friday, and we're going to talk about some nonsensical stuff.
Yeah.
And we're going to start by talking about, does anybody know how much it costs to get a passport card? Because we just got passport cards.
I didn't realize that there was a differentiation between passports and cards.
Yeah, you can get a passport card, which only lets you get into like Canada and Mexico. You know, the places most people don't want to go.
Well, people want to go to Canada.
Well, that's true. Yeah, Canada's not bad.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
I'm just being difficult.
But at least while I'm there, I'll get full health care. Is that right?
Yeah, you'll just be on a waiting list. You plan on staying months and months?
So if I get sick, I have to stay at least 3 months to get...
I'm thinking. If you want anything substantive, yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, yeah, it's like $30 for a passport card, $140 for an actual passport if you need that, but we didn't need that for right now.
Okay.
So $30. And then once you've paid your $30 for each person to get your passport card, then they look at you and they go, well, we need $140 for a processing fee. So it's really...
Now, we kind of were discussing this a little bit earlier, but don't we pay taxes that put all this stuff in place, right?
I think so.
And we pay taxes that are supposed to maintain all these things.
Yeah, but I think that all the taxes pay for is the toilet paper in the bathrooms in the public facilities.
Okay. Well, that would make sense.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't want to pay for toilet paper when you have to use the restroom.
Well, you wouldn't want to think that your taxes were actually going towards what you thought they were for.
That's true.
Which is all of these government things.
Correct. Yeah.
So we get taxed from our paycheck right off the rip.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we get taxed every time we buy something.
Right.
Doesn't matter what it is, unless it's food. We're allowed to buy our food tax free.
Right.
But then any services that we want to get back from the government, there's fees because we have to then talk to a person and do things.
Right.
And so we're paying fees, which are just taxes because it's more government spending. And then we pay, when aren't we paying taxes? We pay it when we die.
Yeah.
We pay it if we leave the country. If you guys went to Canada and said, Canada is amazing, we're out, you would pay a tax on what assets you have left here to get them out of here.
Right.
I mean, where does it stop?
It doesn't stop. As a matter of fact, I come to understand that in June, the gas will be going up 10 cents. The governor wanted 18 cents, but they gave him 10 cents more on a gallon of gas. So I figured, just randomly started figuring, like, if there's just in Geauga County,
right?
If there's 98,000, I think, people in Geauga County. So if you break that down, I think I broke it down into like 100,000 households. I just kind of rounded stuff, you know. And each one of them spends so much money in gas.
Say $40 a week.
Yeah. So I broke it down, and I think it came out to like $3.4 million a month.
Yeah.
Just in that extra 10 cents.
Insane amounts of money. And this is the thing. This is what they've done by allowing the money system to go inflationary and off the gold standard, just willy-nilly. The numbers are so huge. We can't process them.
Oh, man.
We can't. We have no idea. And like you said, a month. $3.2 some million a month. And that's just you random ballparking numbers.
Right.
That doesn't count that households have 3 cars, 2 kids are driving, 5 cars.
Right.
Nonsense. Taxi services, limo services, semi-trucks. You're not counting any of the truck traffic and all of that tax.
Right.
Awash with money.
Yep.
And yet, when you go, you just want to go. Now, mind you, 5 years ago, you could just drive over to Canada, and they give you a hard time. What are you doing here, eh? And you'd be like, I want to look at your stupid waterfall. Eh. And they would be like, okay, but don't stay long. And I'm like, what do I look like? Whatever. And then you come back. And then the Americans are like, are you sure you're from here? Are you sure? You're like, all my belongings are over there. I can show you. I'm like, okay, we trust you. There was some rigmarole, but you got it done.
Yeah, right.
5-6 short years ago. Now you're a criminal.
Yeah, terrorist.
Yeah, you're a criminal. Find Canada. I won't go see your waterfall.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to
I'll watch
Niagara Falls, New York.
Yeah.
And see the American side and a town heavily run by the mafia.
Is that true?
Yes.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's bad.
Well, maybe I'd like to go there then.
You should go over there. Now
Yeah.
that's be something to see.
Like I could walk into a pizza joint and be like, "Yo, what's going on?"
Yeah, you could.
And then
Hey, hey.
They would think I was part Canadian, part
Yeah,
Italian.
part Italian. There was a shooting. We have this factory that we work at in Niagara Falls, New York. I bet they're really thrilled at my sales of their area. I hope the town council isn't watching. But they like pushed all these bombed out houses back because it's bombed out. Because the mafia don't let nothing happen.
Okay.
It's since starting to grow because people, unlike yourself, who aren't going to go get this thing, are starting to go up there and they're like, well, we'll go see what's on the American side.
Okay.
And they're realizing it's a toilet.
Wow.
So they're kind of cleaning it up. So Niagara Falls, New York is pushing back bombed out houses and putting up a new factory. And so there's this beautiful factory that they're moving from this old dumpy factory next door that they're going to bulldoze that. And they're like, they're trying to clean it up and fix things up, but you can't get nothing done without the right union, without the right union labor. You can't get nothing done. And at the same time, you're like, man, they're really fixing up out here. And I was outside with some of the fellas, and they're like, yeah, well, last week a guy got shot right over there in that bar, right on the street
And
at 2 p.m.
And do they relate that to mafia crime?
No, that's just generic.
Just-
Yeah, that's
Gotcha.
poverty driven. I don't even want to say that. That sounds bad, but
Yeah.
it's just
That is
depressed area culture.
Right.
I don't know what you want to
Because
call
we
it.
know in multi-million-dollar
There's no
homes,
crime.
there's no crime.
No, well,
no one's ever murdered.
the crimes that are committed there end up on Netflix specials.
Oh, that's true. Yes. Yeah. And usually they're in a heat of passion. It's not like
Right.
they just go kill somebody for
Willy
no
nilly,
reason.
no.
I mean, it's a heat of passion.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, stabbing or whatever. Either way, anyway. So you got your money extorted from you. So
Yes.
you could go see the Canada waterfall.
And we can. And our plan is to do a
Well,
little more than that.
you hope. Because you just found out about this, right?
Mhm.
That you need to do this.
Yeah.
You're probably at some kind of thing where they're like, this is the other great thing about the government. All right, but we're going to need 90 days to do what you want.
Yeah, it's 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. So
So we're
you're at the cutoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not sure if we're going to be able to get the facility because, you have to reserve these things in advance. And we don't want to reserve them if we don't know we're going to get our...
This would be a whole different thing. If you took your family and you took them your $7,227
Uh-huh.
and you were like, boom, you could go there today.
Right.
That would be one thing. But they're like, bring us your money. Maybe. We'll let you know.
Yeah.
We might deny you at week 3.5 and
Right.
you're in 4 or 5 week wait time.
Yeah.
You have no idea.
Yeah.
Just sit still.
We can follow it after 2 weeks. We can get on the
I have
website
no
and follow it.
reason for good customer service as a
Okay.
government employee. There's none. There's none.
Listen, Brenda Havel and Naomi Abner Weipert. Oh, I don't know why I just said your full name. I apologize. Brenda and Naomi are watching. They're regulars, and so
Are they on the YouTubes or on the
they're on Facebook.
Facebooks?
Yeah, and Matt Wilson's now watching on Facebook.
Yeah, I just joined. I was looking for the comments.
We literally, in order to get enough viewers, to
We
make it
watch
look like
ourselves.
we have to watch ourselves.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
I'm gonna jump on the YouTube
This needs to get more consistent or more popular, one or the other.
It's doing both. I have to work. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Just
I told you
can
you could
tell
have-
can you tell your kids that sometimes they just can't eat, so we can get these
Should.
videos done?
I should.
Just,
I
I
might be the only one watching on there. We'll see.
mean, your kids are thin, but they can go a little more. They can.
Well,
They don't
I
need
think
that.
they're starting to get some carbo belly.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's a rough world out there.
it is.
So what else you got on your extortion?
Well, I've been doing some. I was telling you earlier that I've been just watching videos and reading some stuff on creationism and evolution and those kind of things, and it's just interesting to see that And I don't know if the average everyday person is sitting around talking about these things, but if you sit and listen long enough to the educated realms that are debating these things and talking about these things, you'll see that these philosophies and these ways of thinking have infiltrated into everyday thought.
An example would be,
so just for something as simple as someone saying, for instance, that well, what you believe is true and what I believe is true.
Right.
All right.
We have our own truth.
Yeah, we have our own truth.
Okay.
But I'm not going to say you're wrong, and you really can't say that I'm wrong.
No, right.
So there's no absolute truth, but we wouldn't talk about it in a educated way, saying there's no absolute truth, and we wouldn't call it relativism. We just call it, being the culture that we're in. We just call it being kind to one another, because we don't want to offend you. So we're not going to tell you that what you're saying is not true. But yet you go into an educated realm and you get all this, this debate is like using big words, and they're talking about this stuff, but it's infiltrated into everyday life.
Right.
Because people look at you and they go, hey, we can't accuse you of being wrong, but it's just what you believe or what you think is right.
And we have to let that lie.
Right.
Right.
So that's one version. The other version, of course, is even though you don't think about it, you think about life and the whole abortion issue. You think about what's going on with gender identity now. All those kind of things, I think, go back and stem from these kind of thoughts that take us back to whether there's a creator, whether there's actual moral morality and truth.
Right.
And if there isn't, then pretty much people can do whatever they want. And yet even those people who say there isn't and they can do whatever they want, they still will come to a conclusion that eventually there's a line drawn that you can't do this or you can't do that.
And you say, well, you would say naturally, how's that line drawn?
For most people, it's drawn whether it interferes with my pleasure.
Right.
That's for most people.
Right.
So if killing my spouse is going to interfere with my pleasure, then it's wrong for you to kill my spouse.
But if killing my spouse furthers my goal for further pleasure, then we're okay with it.
Yeah, we're good.
Could you imagine trying to enforce something like that?
Oh, that'd be...
Like, what would a judge do? Did you want your husband dead or not? Well, I don't know. Now I realize he was bringing in money.
Yeah.
I don't think I wanted him dead. Can we prosecute that guy?
Right.
Like, that's how it could go.
Right. Because
that's crazy.
Yeah. And the reason I say, evolution, I've been watching and reading stuff on evolution.
Well, this is how you're starting to have to accept evolution. That's where this is going, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Because if you go back and you say we all came from this primordial sludge,
right,
then that means we're just random chemicals and there is no purpose or meaning.
Sure.
So these random chemicals are just bouncing around doing what they do, and it really doesn't mean there is no right or wrong.
I would have to say.
And so, but then you'll have people who believe that, and yet they will say, wait a minute, society will determine what's right or wrong.
But only a few hundred years ago, society said that having a black in your barn to harvest your corn was okay.
Yeah.
Or your cotton or whatever.
Yeah.
Was that cool?
No.
Well, so now it's bad?
Right.
This is the silliness where we start to.
Exactly.
How do we know that your truth today won't be not truth in 50 years?
Yep. So that comes down. I was having a discussion with someone concerning really not just evolution, but what they would consider now as evolutionary thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not just about the evolution of man and where we came from. It's this evolution thought or progressive thought. And it really boils down to socialism eventually.
Sure.
It comes into Marxism and socialism and that kind of stuff. But as we talked about this, I said, well, define, because the question was, what is your worldview? And I said, well, you define worldview for me. And the person really couldn't define worldview. They had some ideas and generalities about what worldview was, but they couldn't define it. And I said, well, here's how I have heard it defined. And I said, I think it's a really good definition. I said, a person's worldview is made up of four things. It's made up of what they believe concerning the origin of life.
Okay.
It's made up of morality. It's made up of meaning. And then it's made up of destiny. So the idea is, where do we come from? Origin of life. What is the meaning of all this? where does morality come from, and then destiny, where do I go after
this, right?
That makes up, if you take any person's philosophy of what they believe about,
those are the 4 things you're going to come down to.
Those seem to be the 4 things you're going to.
All right,
I think it's a good definition.
No, that sounds good.
So when you start talking about evolutionary thought, going back to evolution itself, you start to see how people are thinking about these things.
Well, this starts to really heavily define your worldview, your overall worldview. Right. The crazy thing about that is, though, is it is balanced out by your own inner conscience, the Holy Spirit,
right?
Of like, well, I can't. The evolutionist at the end of the day can't say, well, if Matt shoots me in the head because he's a stronger fella, I guess the weaker died.
Right.
The evolutionists can't go there because it's not true.
Right.
It's not in us to believe that.
Right.
It's just silly.
Yeah.
So that's where that kind of falls apart. I guess that's probably where they're starting to take this apart, by starting to say, okay, give me a big picture of your worldview. Right. And then you start to dismantle their arguments from there.
And, the more and more I've seen either interviews or I'm talking with people, and you ask them the question, well, was Hitler wrong then?
Right.
Do you realize the responses that I'm starting to see and get, people are going, no, he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm going, seriously?
Yeah.
20 years ago, someone said Hitler wasn't wrong for
what he did. This goes back to when you and I were in high school, and they would show us World War II movies of, like they took MacArthur and they took the generals, Patton, and all. They took all these people through the camps, and then they drug as many of the people from the villages, the German villages, through the camps, and they videoed it. And they did all these things. Why? So that people won't forget. And you and I are sitting in high school going, who's going to forget this?
Right.
This is mass murder on a scale. And now here we are. We're only 20 years later from when you and I were in high school.
Right.
You're telling me you're running into people that go, Hitler might have been all right.
Yeah.
He might have been okay.
Right.
I'm not sure that any of that happened.
Because part of this evolutionary thought and this socialism, Marxism is whatever is the greater good and benefit for the people, that becomes truth to them.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the individual.
Yeah,
that is their thing.
But the problem is, what if you're on the other end of the stick, right?
Right. No, exactly. You're supposed to take. It's Logan's Run. As dumb as and old as that movie is.
I don't remember. It sounds familiar, but I don't remember.
So when you're 33, everybody gets blasted up into this big ball of whatever, and they kill you. Like you're basically euthanized at 33.
Okay.
And then they believe that you're coming back as a baby, and so they all run down to the nursery and try and find you, which one you were. Well, this fellow Logan and the lovely Later counterpart that was in the movie with him, they're like, I don't want to die. I don't think this is right.
Okay.
So they escape. And where do they escape to? They come out in the reflecting pool in Washington, D.C., because it's like an underground society.
Okay.
Because like there was a nuclear war. It's late 70s stuff.
All right.
But yeah, that's the whole point. And
Logan's Run.
Logan's Run.
I might want to look that out.
The guy's like, it's really terrible. The guy is like, I don't mean terrible in its poor quality.
Okay.
But the whole point is like, and I hear this all the time from the people listening on the radio, the socialism or communism is not for the socialist or the communist. Bernie Sanders is not going to be a part of the systems that he wants to sell as president.
Right. No.
He is going to have his millions of dollars.
Exactly.
Like the idiot stands up there and says, well, I sold a book. That's how I made my millions. Well, you just participated in capitalism, you ding dong. Like, are you kidding me? You just showed why capitalism is wonderful.
Right.
But you want to pull that away from me. Yeah. And now you want to slam the door behind you, essentially, which is what all these numbskulls want to do.
Right.
And socialism, communism are not for the socialists or the communists. They're for the people that you throw it on their backs and you just grind them down until they die. Because once you have the needs of the many over the needs of the one, you can kill all you want.
Yeah.
Pull them in a barn in the middle of the night and shoot them. Right. Who cares? Right. Because, and it truly is the complete antithesis of how God set everything up. He set it up for the individual.
Right.
My salvation, to work out my salvation, is my own responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have my own thoughts, my own ideas, my own covenant with the Father.
Right.
We just destroy all of it.
That's true.
With communism and socialism.
Yeah.
Here it comes. Get ready, everybody.
And then slightly probably through the back door, although democracy is obviously the better route
It's
for
not.
the people.
And this becomes the argument. Go ahead.
Right. But through the back door, then even that causes people then, like you said, it's about my salvation, work my salvation out. But then for those people, even democracy becomes jaded because then it still comes back to self and what is good for me. And so the culture has allowed people to do that.
All right. So very quickly, we're not a democracy. We're supposed to be a republic.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Because democracy doesn't work either. That's just in numbers. And that's what we're trying
Right.
to do by getting rid of this talk lately of trying to get rid of the electoral college.
Right.
Right.
So we're trying to get back to republic.
They're trying to make an actual numbers, majority elects whatever. That's a true democracy. And that's why we didn't go with the democracy, was because they knew that, like, New York at that time when they were doing all this up, New England, New York, and then some of the bigger states in the South were going to tell everybody else who's going to be the president.
Right.
That's why they made the electoral college. So now all the states have a voice. Either way, anyway, whatever. So we're a republic where it comes down to the small pieces of government. But what the problem is there is people won't function in their role. People won't help with the church.
Mm-hmm.
People won't help at the town hall or at the whatever. But let's be honest, they make it kind of hard anymore. It's kind of hard because of schedules and life and baseball and entertainment. And then, as far as the government level, it's like cronyism, even all the way down to the county level.
Right.
There's cronyism and
county level, town level,
township level. Sure. There's graft and there's corruption all the way down to the bottom.
Right.
Which gives the Bernie Sanders-ites fuel for why capitalism, which isn't even, that's just a money system. That isn't even a form of government. Right. They don't even know what they're arguing. This gives them ammo to say, well, see, it doesn't work. It's not working because the people on the lowest levels where it should be functioning are corrupt and fallen.
Right.
There's not enough stand-up people anymore down here to hold the whole thing up.
Right.
So you kind of go, well, this. I think this is kind of why we're doomed to go this way, and why, if you look at civilizations, this is how they end up. They end up in totalitarianism. Right. They end up with a really bad ruler over them.
Right. And I think second to a theocracy, which would be God ruling and governing, the republic and the idea of capitalism, I think, works and can be beneficial. But I remember several years ago, I was watching maybe a PBS special or something, and it was talking about Putin and Russia, and they were interviewing different people, and they were talking about how Russia's goal was to make Russian people's life so sustainable or so enjoyable for them that they would never question the government, that they would just, it would be like, hey, we love them because they're giving us stuff and we have everything. And so that would give them power, obviously, to rule the masses.
Right.
And if you think about capitalism and even the republic in this country, I'm not saying, but I think a part of it has bred some of that, people going, hey, I don't care who's in office as long as I got my cable and I can continue to keep my stuff.
Well, yeah, because how pervasive are our handouts.
Right.
If we didn't have the handouts, then you wouldn't have the entitlement.
Right.
The entitlements exist.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, why not grab you some entitlements?
Right.
You know what I mean? So yes and no. I think that's led to our own corruption.
Because you used to have to work for that stuff.
Right. Absolutely. And you still do.
Right.
Depending on who you are.
Right.
So, but we are kind of, and this is the bad thing, is we're kind of a hybrid system already of entitlements and socialism and big government versus independence and, personal responsibility and take care of the small parts of town kind of culture. And we're in a fight, figuring out which one's going to win.
Yeah. And
the question is, are your kids, my kids, and younger people astute enough and driven enough and motivated enough to go after, like, it'll be hard, but I'm going to make my own.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's what they're stealing in schools.
Yeah.
That's what they're taking in schools.
Right.
It's like, no, you do what I tell you to do. I'm going to give you X, Y, and Z. You're going to spit out A squared, B squared, C squared. Boom, you have an education. Go to work.
Right.
Listen to the government. That's what you get in school.
Right. Well, let me just throw this out. I'm gonna try to switch gears on us real quick. Something Matt brought up earlier. But before I do that, if Brenda and Naomi, if you guys are still watching and you have thoughts or questions or any kind of interjections or something you've been thinking about, throw it our way, and we'll try to discuss that. But I wanted to.
So Brandon, I texted Brandon earlier. Brandon texted me. He's like, "Is the world 1 million years old?" No, sir. I don't believe so. And he goes, "Am I crazy to think it's 10,000?" Trying to give you questions. So he was talking about that would be the evolutionary thought and young Earth versus. If you ever notice as evolution evolves, they need more and more time.
Yeah.
When evolution first started, it was a few million years.
Right.
Now we're into the billions of years.
Right.
We need that much time to possibly make this work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, anybody who's watching can bring. So Brandon, is that YouTube that Brandon's on?
He just texted me. I'm not sure what his medium.
Okay. All right. Well, he probably can't log on because he would be actually working in school.
Right? Okay.
But I kind of was thinking about switching gears and going towards this. I'm really intrigued now, and I'm probably gonna do some senseless stuff and watch some things on this. Was it Bob Lazar?
Bob Lazar.
Why don't you give us a quick rundown of who this guy is?
So I'm sitting in my garage one evening, and I talked with another friend of mine who was also into different conspiracies and nonsensical things. And he's like, "Have you seen this movie, Bob Lazar?" And I'm like, "No, I don't even know who this is." So you gotta go on Amazon.
Prime?
But it's not Prime. You have to rent it. Which to my friends' credit towards this movie is Amazon won't even give it to you. You gotta pay for it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's like $5. That's why people
Seriously?
are checking this out. Yeah.
You can't get the cheaper version for like $2.99?
There are some reviews on the Amazon video of Bob Lazar that say you can watch this on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
You can. He's not. There's not. So this was a produced video of all of Bob Lazar's older interviews plus some of his newer commentary.
Okay.
But there's a lot of gingerbread. There's like flickering lights and there's video transitions and like it's produced, right?
Gotcha.
And so some of the critiques are like, I could do without the production. We can get the interviews on YouTube. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
That kind of stuff.
All right, gotcha.
So you can see some of his stuff. But this actually puts it in a chronological order.
Okay.
And kind of gives you a rundown of Bob Lazar, the individual who.
Right, this is who Bob Lazar is, by the way.
Bob Lazar is a fella who was interviewed by KTLV or whoever in Las Vegas. And I want to say this was maybe 88, 89 or 90. And he basically gave testimony to the fact that Area 51, which he calls it something else, the actual name that they use, SP2 or something like that. And he basically says the stuff's there. It exists. I've seen it. And when we say this stuff, we're talking about all the alien nonsense that your mind wants to wander over. He goes, we don't know how it works. We're trying to figure it out. We can manipulate their stuff, but we haven't been able to duplicate it. And his whole approach was, let's let this out there because it'd be a crime to keep it from humanity. Like if humanity knows something like this, then we need to let humanity know. And so it's basically just a documentary of a series of interviews conducted at that time period with the interviewer, George something.
Clooney.
No, not Clooney. You're close.
All right.
And he basically makes a follower out of this interviewer, and there's other followers now that follow his thoughts and ideas. And he's semi-reclusive. He when he was a kid, he's a super brainiac scientist. When he was a kid, he used to make his own fireworks. He made his own jet engine, propulsion bicycle.
So by definition, he's a terrorist.
He's a big brain. No, he's just a big brain.
Okay, all right.
Like he.
Believe what you want. But.
You do think you could use those things for good. It's not just for bad. So Either way, anyway, this movie goes through this whole thing of like this stuff exists, and people need to be able to deal with it. Maybe we don't know what's coming or what is going. Maybe we don't know what's up or down, but people need to have these things to start talking about it.
Okay.
It's his whole point.
So we know as Christians that from the book of Daniel and the book of Matthew and what Jesus talked about, and Paul's dealings in Ephesians chapter 6 specifically, and then the book of Revelation, that there are demonic entities that rule over principalities,
Powers and principalities in the air.
Yeah, and they rule over nations. They literally, these demonic
whole
entities,
nations.
Yeah, they rule whole nations.
Which we talked about before could be races.
It could be, correct, right. But either way, even those races would come under a population or a governance of some sort, right? So either way, however you look at it, you've got these demonic entities that right now have rule and reign over, people.
Chunks of people.
Yeah, chunks of people.
Right.
So if that's the case, then obviously they're going to be morphing back and forth from realm to realm.
Well, I think it's becoming more apparent. And like we talked this morning, like just where I'm living, I think it's real. But like we're saying, I think it's demonic. I think it's spiritual. I think all of these things, we're just seeing a different dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are bound by time. So there's a dimension right there that others don't have.
Right.
We have to figure out what that looks like. And I think, as which book is it? Remind me. Is it in Revelation where it says, as it was in the days of Noah, so will it be in the days of coming of the Son of Man?
Matthew 24.
Is that Matthew 24?
24 or 25. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're seeing that. Because if you look at the stuff going on in Noah's time, there were some pretty strange things,
mm-hmm.
right? There were some pretty otherworldly things. There were some pretty, like obviously the Nephilim,
mm-hmm.
okay? Those were spiritual beings coming to Earth and mingling with Earth women.
Well, the Nephilim were the offspring.
The Nephilim were the offspring, but they were
of the sons of God.
The sons of God,
mm-hmm.
Right? So obviously these things are possible,
right,
or have been possible. Right. And if the end times are marked by, as it was in the days of Noah, well they stuck Noah on a boat and drowned everything for a reason,
right?
And if those times are coming again, right. Is it not logical that we'll see them again?
Right. Yeah, and what's interesting is that. Everything has been underplayed or really kind of low-keyed on anything spiritual for years. Like
are you talking about like mainstream?
Yeah, naturalism really has won out over the last maybe 50.
Yeah, because listen, the Christian the revival movement kind of had its day in the mid-90s,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Rich Mullins, Awesome God t-shirts,
right.
Youth camps. That's when we were there,
right?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was when I was there. You were, yeah. And
I was a pagan.
Okay. Whatever. I'm just saying, like that was our shot.
Yeah.
And I think we've sprungboard into all the things that we've talked about in previous videos about bad things the churches have become.
Right.
But yes, the naturalist, hippie, universalist, what's the word I'm looking for? Of the consciousness and the New Age.
Yeah.
New Ageism has won out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so now we're looking at all this spiritual stuff. If you go back 2,000 years ago and Jesus shows up on the scene, those people there were very spiritual. I mean, Rome itself had their gods, their Zeus and all the Roman gods and different things that they worshipped and believed in. And all your different places had these different gods. And Jesus was this kind of, like we were talking about this morning, this link between the supernatural and the physical. He was Son of Man, Son of God. He was fully human, fully God. And he's bringing this supernatural to earth. And he's actually manifesting this supernatural stuff.
Right.
Whereas they're all worshiping these gods, these entities that don't speak, don't talk. They're just statues.
Right.
And here he shows up and he's manifesting this stuff now. And now here we are 2,000 years later. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is getting crazy for me. Because I'm like, one of two things have to happen. Either somebody's got to come back and go, wait a minute, all that, they have to debunk all that spiritual stuff and say it's not true.
Yep.
and we are going to live as naturalists, and everybody just kind of is random chemicals, and we live and we survive and we do whatever.
We don't kill people because most people say don't do it.
Right.
Right.
And so at the end of the day, we're all just trying to survive and have a good life until we die, because when you die, that's it.
Right.
Nothing else. Or something's got to open wide when it comes to this spiritual realm.
Right.
Like, I just feel like we're on this
precipice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like something like, I mean, I'm thinking the return of Christ, and I know some Christians have been talking about that for a long time, but when I think of his return, though, a part of me is not going rapture, millennial kingdom. It could be, but a part of me is going, man, when he comes back, that's like what you were talking about, like the days of Noah. When he comes back, judgment comes. And it's not going to be with flood. It's going to be with fire.
So this brings in what we were talking about in Times Philosophy a month and a half ago, where one of the last times we met was like, we are going to see some nasty stuff.
Uh-huh.
We are going to see some tribulation. We are going to go through some stuff. If we live, then we will see him blow trumpets, da-da-da. And like you said, it's going to be like the hammer. Like you brought up an interesting point. We were talking the past few Sundays. Armageddon isn't going to be like a days in, days out bloodbath or whatever. He shows up on the scene, a sword comes out of his mouth, and they are all dead.
Yeah.
Like that's all going to happen. We have everything kind of backwards in how we think about these things going to happen.
Right.
We're going to see some weird stuff.
Yeah.
We may die. We are going to have to suffer in his name, like he says we will.
Yeah.
And those of us that make it and get taken up with him after the dead ones are taken up,
right,
that all happens afterwards. And then judgment, boom, just like the flood.
Right.
It's going to happen all again.
Yeah. I recently started going through some of Sproul's lectures on the parousia, which is preterism.
He's a preterist, right?
It's the thing. And I've only watched the first part of it. My plan is in the next few weeks to go through the entire lecture series and take notes on it. And just
is it on YouTube?
Yeah, you can get it on YouTube.
I'm a Sproul fan. I should see this.
Yeah, go YouTube and find it. I don't know if you YouTube Sproul and parousia or Sproul and I don't know, but you'll find it.
Okay.
It's like I want to say it's like 15 different lectures or something like that. And you have to make sure you have some really strong coffee and you have maybe something to munch on.
I find him entertaining.
Well, yeah, but in these lectures though,
not so much.
It's just business. But it's good. I mean, it's good to hear the stuff.
No, it's true.
But in thinking through all this stuff, I mean, even if the rapture does come, okay, still, I just see that the doors have to be flung open on this whole thing, like the spiritual aspect. Like,
people are finally people are gonna be called to the carpet to make a choice, right?
Right.
We can't just, I don't know. We can't keep going business as usual. I don't I think this is what you're saying.
Yeah.
We can't keep going business as usual and then boom, all of a sudden we have to worry about spiritual things again.
Yeah. And yet that's what part of Matthew says when Jesus is talking about that in his gospel, and he says it'll be like in the days of Noah, they'll be marrying, giving marriage. What that's really saying is it'll be business as usual. I mean, the whole concept of that is saying people will be doing these things. They'll be marrying, giving marriage, drinking, eating, business as usual. That's what they're doing.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Part of that is we're just busy doing.
Well, we're just turned over to our sinful natures, which, we would argue is like, well, I don't know. I even have a time with that anymore. Saying, well, this time we live in is one of the most darkest, dirtiest times there are. But I think it always has been.
Yeah.
It's never been. When has there ever been an amazing time where there hasn't been dark and dirty?
Right. Yeah, it's always been there.
No, we are human sinful nature.
Yeah.
So it's like exactly what you're saying. Yeah. That's business as usual.
Yeah. And business as usual for most
people.
The
difference is going to be we're going to have demons taking off out of the water and people writing books about it going, I saw this on a submarine in the middle of the night.
Right.
That's what's going to be different.
Yeah. And the other thing about it is that we'll be living in it in such a way that we'll be numb to the reality or the truth of what's going on, and we'll be taken in by the awesomeness of this spiritual. And I think that's where a lot of the deception is going to happen.
Scary movies.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen more in your life?
Right.
Being available.
Right.
And when I say scary movies, I mean just pure demonic hatred of humans where we're killing them and massacring them and cutting them up and all the horrible things that I know exist. And I try and avoid these commercials like you wouldn't believe. Right? Let alone people are in love with going out and seeing this stuff. Yeah. And how about the fact that Out on Easter, new horror movie.
Mhm.
Out on Christmas, new horror movie.
Right.
Out on July 4th, new horror movie.
Yeah.
When do we get a good Christmas movie? Maybe on Netflix, maybe 2 weeks before Christmas.
Right.
And it's Kurt Russell and there's some swearing in it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I would advise you to go to Hallmark.
I can't.
There's great Christmas movies.
You
on
may
Hallmark.
not. You may not.
I mean, it's really it takes your time, hours of your time, but they're good movies.
Well, either way, anyway, that's what we see an increase in, I
Mhm.
believe, is evil activity of the owner of this earth.
Yeah. And like my boys, Avengers, the Endgame.
I want
just
to ask
came
you
out.
about that.
Yeah, have you obviously? Haven't
I'm
seen
not
it.
a huge Avengers fan.
Okay, well, you know,
I know
Justin,
you are.
Justin, I heard, went last night. The only tickets he could get 3 a.m. and he watched it till 6. It's a 3-hour movie, 3
Right.
hours and 58 seconds,
Right.
I think. So he watched till 6 a.m. and then had to leave the theater and go to work.
Nice.
So he watched the whole thing. Now he said that it was one of the most amazing movies he's ever seen. He said, but it's sad at the end. I don't know what happens. Maybe some of these guys, Endgame, some of them die or something.
Okay, so my brother, who is somewhat involved in watching these movies,
Okay.
said that he has noticed the amount of occulticism
Yep.
and the
I was
amount
just gonna bring that
of
up.
blasphemy and denial of God has increased as the series has increased.
Mhm.
So I'm watching the news this morning, and I wanted to ask you about this. I'm glad it came up. I'm watching the lady interviewing, like, everybody's at the movies and they can. It's so wonderful, and everybody wants to see it. And they're like, how does everything there look, Stacy? And she's like, well, I can tell you that they come out and they look dismayed and disheartened and frightened, and they look exhausted and stressed out. I'm
Well,
like,
yeah.
what is going on in this movie? Like, this is not what you want to hear from people coming out of a movie.
That's how she described
Yes.
it. Wow.
Yes. So I want to know now. Now I kind of
What?
want to go back and at least catch pieces of this and see what the heck's going on.
Well, Brian and Nathan want to go see it tonight. Eric is supposed to possibly go, so the three of them want to go see it. They said, hey, why don't we all go? You know, they thought that would be cool if April and I went. I mean, that's really neat, though. It's really neat to have your boys decide that it would be cool if mom and dad went to see a movie with us. So I almost want to go, but I'm like, I'm not sitting for 3 hours
Yeah.
and watch a movie. I'll get blood clots, dude.
I'll wait till it comes to my house.
Well, that's what we were talking about too, about waiting. But they want to go see it. Now, here's the thought: if I don't go, though, I won't be able to talk with them about the different things that are going on in the movie.
Let's dig a little deeper in this. Do your boys get this excited about anything going on at the church?
No.
Any events going on that are Christian or God-based,
Mm-mm.
God helping, God love? Okay, so it doesn't matter.
But would it help if I dressed up in a Captain America suit on Sundays when I preached?
Be more relevant.
Yeah.
You know what you should do? We didn't get to talk about this. So many just happened in weeks. But you know what you should do is you should invite all the kids up front to spit on you.
To spit on me?
Yeah,
Okay.
and
That's interesting.
spit on you, kick you, and then offer them a steak knife to cut you.
Okay.
Did you not hear this story?
No.
Oh, come on. This was at a church in Ohio, the Impact Church.
What?
It's a youth pastor.
Okay.
He wanted to give a sense of what Jesus went through. So he's like, come on, spit on me. Spit. Kids are spitting on him,
No, they're not.
kicking him,
Is this on a video?
beating him.
We need to bring that.
No,
video.
like this, like parents were like, they were on, there was a video because it went live. And then parents are like, I'm coming to get my kid, because then he offers them a steak knife. Cut me. And somebody cut his back or something. Yes. These things, this is our churches. This happened. And his defense, well, I figured it'd be a little crazy, but I didn't think it would be bad. I guess I don't see the, yeah.
I mean, even the spitting and punching that's like kind of a line. But you give him a steak knife to cut you? Come on.
It happened.
That doesn't even make sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I guarantee you, I'm going to throw your boys right under the bus, that if there was an event where they're like, we're going to spit, kick, and cut this guy when we get there, they'd go.
Yeah, they go.
They'll be there.
At least to see
I
it.
might go watch.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, I was thinking too, like if I do the Captain America thing and I have the shield that he has.
Uh-huh.
When I see people starting to fall asleep,
Bonk
I
'em.
throw that thing out,
Uh-huh.
it hits them and comes back to me.
Uh-huh.
And if I can manage that, people will really be amazed by that kind of stuff.
I guess.
Because when Captain America throws that shield, it always comes back to him.
I don't know. I want you to go watch this thing, or I want my brother to go sit, because I feel like I can't watch it. I feel everybody says you can't just start in the middle.
Well, here's the issue that I've seen over the years. Captain America was a military project,
right?
And so he comes out strong, and he's able
Jason
to live.
Bourne, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But now he, because of a chemical thing that they did to him, he's got these not only powers, but he pretty much lives forever now, and he can't really die and all that stuff. So from there, that was like an all-American type of show. It was kind of fun. It was good. But then they started to link him with your demigods like Thor and Loki and the different ones from Asgard and all that kind of stuff. So they get linked together. And on top of that, you've got Hulk.
What's his name? Chris, what's his head? Makes a really great Thor.
Oh, yeah, he does. Yeah. He's attractive, too.
He is attractive.
Yeah. Muscular.
I'm telling you, he's a good Thor.
Yeah. All right.
Is Captain America or not? Because they did a good job with the guy with the energy in his hand, the suit. Is he in this movie?
The suit with energy.
He can fly.
Is he the guy that almost pretty much
Iron Man?
Oh, Iron Man. I think he's in it too.
Yeah, right. They brought him in.
Yeah.
Which they did a good job with him.
That was Tony Stark.
Right. But it was played by Junior.
I know who. Yeah, I can't remember his name now.
Another fairly handsome individual that is fun to watch act.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the females are quite attractive and
why would they
acrobatic and able to do all these things and fight.
I don't like female superheroes though.
Yeah. Well, there's no, from my understanding though, like now, and then you've got Hulk, who David Banner. That's another experiment gone wrong, right? So
Hulk, right? Yeah.
But you've got this demigod thing, and then in one that I've seen, like I just realized that I didn't see the last one. The boys were telling me about something else going on with someone. I'm like, I don't think I saw that one. But the one that I did see was, and I won't remember the character's name, but he had a cape, and he literally, in the storyline, if you watch this, you'll see it. He literally is a representation of Jesus in the movie. I mean, you can see it if you know the Bible at all. You can see him as a representation of Jesus.
I kind of gotta watch these dumb movies.
And now you're going into this realm like you're talking about. Now you're linking it all together.
Right.
Now it's all starting to come together.
Right.
So I mean, obviously there is, like, we're talking about this stuff in reality, like Area 51 or SP2 or whatever,
right.
These people that are coming out, and that there's something happening. The Bible talks about a rapture or a coming where Jesus is going to come back and this spiritual thing's going to open wide. And you've got your movies really kind of culminating and bringing all this stuff together. I got to believe that we're on the tipping point of something here.
We're on the precipice of a big event.
Right.
Which, if you listen to Alex Jones over the history of listening to Alex Jones, they're doing this on purpose. Right. And you can take, who was I watching? Oh, it was John MacArthur of all people was talking. Did you watch his thing on the Mahdi?
Oh, I saw. You know what? I watched this thing on the Mahdi about a month ago, and I realized that he stole all my work.
That's right. We talked about
a year and a half ago.
Right. He took all. But what I'm saying is,
does he watch me? You think?
I think so. I would say.
I can't believe he stole it.
No, I know. You're not even.
He knows
you're not even a good Calvinist.
I know. And he would know that I wouldn't be copyrighted or anything.
Yeah.
So he just stole it.
He just took it. Or maybe in some crazy coincidental way, people are putting things together because the pieces are fitting.
Yeah.
And he also, what I would think, instead of you thinking that he stole your sermon series.
Well, I don't understand why this is so funny, though.
I would think
that John MacArthur would not steal my stuff.
But I would just be bolstered by the fact that a person like John MacArthur has come to the same conclusion I have. Just me over here in Ohio. Either way, with the idea that the Jews are primed and looking for the initial Jesus.
Yeah.
The Christians are primed and looking for the second coming of Jesus.
Right.
And the Muslims are primed and waiting for the Mahdi, who sounds exactly like the Antichrist.
Yep.
And if you go by their stuff, that our Jesus is in there. They're Antichrist.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
And to bring the world along, the secular world, which could care less about anything spiritual,
Right.
we make these movies.
Yep. That's
and
exactly.
Show them. Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening. Because you know what? The secular world, who are the naturalists, who don't care about the spiritual realm,
Right.
all they want to hear from the governments that are going to be doing all this stuff and interacting is, I got my cable and I've got my Wi-Fi and I've got my Facebook and I've got my stuff, and that's all I really need.
I watched.
Oh, I got to take a mark? Yeah, go ahead. Sign me up.
Hey, listen, if you think about how they're brainwashing us in with these phones, I sometimes worry about myself.
Meaning you might have to take the mark to use your phone?
Would I really say no? Will I know when it comes?
I see. That's where people have asked me that question before, and I really think that if a person is going to have to make the intellectual assent to say, yes, I want to defy Christ or deny Christ and follow the beast, I think it's going to have to be made clear. I don't think you don't think we're going to be tricked. I don't think we're going to be tricked.
Okay.
I think they're going to say, hey, this is the way it is. You've got to make a choice.
All right. Well, then let's make it even scarier. What if I find myself tempted, terribly tempted, because sometimes I wonder about myself, how I like the ease of my phone and my credit cards and my cars and I like my life easy. Mm-hmm. I got 18 things going on.
Yeah. And
when the technology works, it makes my life easy in this area, this area, this area. I need it.
Well, I think temptation, just like anything else, you're tempted, James says, when you're pulled away by your own evil desires and lusts.
Exactly.
Okay. So if you have these lusts and these desires, and you're being pulled away by them, there's only one thing that can keep you from it, and that's Christ himself.
Right.
So I would have to think that in that time frame, that the choice or the reality of your salvation is going to be based on what choice you make then.
Yeah.
Because Christ.
But if I'm conditioning, I guess what scares me is if I'm conditioning myself
to go that way.
We are being conditioned to go that way.
Yeah.
We have made the church fit into materialism, not vice versa.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we are conditioned to have life be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm being conditioned to go that way, and they're like, your life's getting very hard starting today, then what do I do?
Well, see, I think that's why I've been feeling, especially in the last few years,
to withdraw.
Well, not necessarily withdrawal, but to call the church and myself. I feel God calling me to live a life that is so dependent on Him that I no longer am dependent on the things of this world. Because I think you're exactly right. That's where it's pulling all of us to. And that's where the deception comes. Like Daniel and the 3 Hebrew children in the book of Daniel. I've been studying that a lot lately. If you think about that, they were brought to a decision. Bow down when you hear the music and worship the image. And the 3 Hebrews said, listen, God can save us. But even if he doesn't, just let it be known to the king, we're not bowing down to your statue. I don't think.
But I mean, and this is the picture that fits a lot of these resolves in the Bible. Everybody else bowed.
I know.
3 did not.
I know.
All the Bible stories resolve in very few. And these things are terrifying to me.
And that's why I think it's important that we preach the full gospel. And the full gospel is not say a prayer, go to heaven.
Right.
The full gospel is say a prayer, surrender your life, and let Jesus have complete control of who you are.
Turn around from who you are.
That's salvation.
Right.
I got a comment and I think a question here from Brenda. She says, aren't you afraid you just aren't good enough to be God's child? Because even just a thought can be a sin, big or small. For instance, my job is so overwhelming at times. I have this one resident that can do so much for herself, but she wants pity and waited on hand and foot. She just gets me so upset. I have 20 other residents that can't help themselves. In my head, I think, oh, I can't stand you. I just want to punch you in the back. All right, this is great. Now, I would never, ever do that, but that's a sin, and it happens almost every day I'm at work. It's so hard to control your thoughts at times. I totally agree. It is. You can't you can't control your thoughts.
This is the first part of this puzzle, is
Mhm.
realizing you're a dirtbag.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's why people have a hard time with the idea when Jesus said, do you hate your brother because you've already murdered him in your mind?
Mhm.
I think that's why, I mean, you know how revolutionary that was to the human history until then?
Right.
Because the Jews thought that they could, as long as they hadn't physically murdered somebody,
Right.
they weren't a murderer.
Right.
And Jesus laid out, you are a wretch
Mhm.
if you follow every law in that book that you think you're following.
Right.
And so it's somewhat crushing if you take that in and that's the way you, that's all you leave it to be.
Right.
I've been there.
Right.
Where like, I am a dirty, filthy person.
Mm-hmm.
But all it is a mechanism for you to realize how badly you need Christ.
Right.
And allow him to work in your life.
Right.
For your salvation.
And I would dare say that other coworkers, whether it be here where she's at or anywhere else, other coworkers would hear this and they would say, I have those thoughts. There's nothing wrong with those thoughts because I've never acted on them.
Right.
However, what Brenda is saying is what is the truth of the gospel, and what Jesus has said is that this is a heart issue. And he's not just concerned about whether or not you punch the person in the back of the head. He's concerned about how you feel about that person.
Right.
Because if you feel contempt for a person, then that's the idea of, you know what? I would just assume them not exist. I would just assume them not even be around. And that's contempt. And Jesus says, no, that's not where the heart is, because I have given my life for that person.
Right.
Even though they're selfish, I gave my life. Because you know what, Brenda? You're selfish. And so the same thing. So I think what you said is right. So being good enough is not the issue. Understanding and realizing that you're a wretched sinner is the first place to begin.
Right.
And once you admit that, it's not about trying to say, well, can I be good enough? It's about understanding that you're not good enough.
Right.
And most people don't want to believe that.
No, they don't. We want to believe we're part of the Clean Plate Club.
Mm-hmm.
We want to believe that we clean our room.
Right.
We want to believe that we make our bed every day. We're going to be doing good.
Right.
This is how we're raised.
Yeah.
We're raised that if we're wrong, how terrified were you that your parents were going to find out?
Right.
Right. And so you figure out the game. You become a teenager. You slip, fall, whatever. You become an adult. Your parents and your peers, they respect you because you've turned out to be somewhat of a respectable person because you don't walk around with snot on your face.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes like, okay, I've arrived.
Right.
But you haven't.
Right.
And so we have a hard time with, well, I arrived. Society says I arrived. I did what I was supposed to do. I'm a good person.
Right.
I don't murder people every day.
Right.
And I'm not stealing candy bars when I go to the grocery store.
Right.
You're not a good person.
Right.
And they're exactly what you're saying. You're having a hard time realizing how wretched you are.
Right.
And you can figure out how wretched you are from the time you're a small kid and you could be on your deathbed and 80 years old. It may take that long.
Right.
But that is the point that we all have to come to.
Right.
Is realizing we are dirtbags.
Right. And that's where Jesus, his message was, twofold here. So you realize that you're a dirtbag. You realize that you're wretched. Now you have to make a choice. Do I want to stay that way?
Right.
And if I want to stay that way, then I'll just rationalize who I am with everybody else in the world, and we'll just get along or not get along, or we'll be with people that we get along with until we don't get along with them, and then we'll find new friends because we can't stand those people. And that's how we'll live our whole life, doing what we can to get ahead for ourselves. So if we decide that we want to stay that way, then we rationalize it. If we decide we don't want to stay that way, then we have to make a choice. And there's probably two choices that people make. One is you can try to get better on your own. Or like Jesus said, you can come to him because you're weary and you understand that you have these heavy burdens and you can't deal with it. And you learn from him and you take his yoke upon you and you find rest for your soul. And the rest for your soul is when Jesus begins to transform the inner person of who you are. Then all of a sudden, instead of having hatred or contempt for the person and wanting to punch them in the back of the head, you feel compassion and pity for that person because now it's not you that's living. It's Christ living in you, as Paul said.
Right.
And in order to choose that, when you say, okay, I want to choose that now, you have to choose now to learn how to live the way Jesus has called you to live. And that means you depend on him, you learn from him, and then you call on him to transform you. And that's not an overnight process, and it's not always easy.
No.
But you have to make the decision to say, this is where I want to be. So now come, say, fast forward 10 years from now, and you say, I've been doing that. And if I were to die right now and get before Jesus, I would say, Jesus, I'm not perfect. Exactly, because you're still not good enough.
Right.
The only reason you get before Jesus and you see the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and he says, well done, good and faithful servant, is because you have continued to choose not to be the person you were, but not to try harder, but to depend on him and trust in him as your salvation and your sanctification, which is your transformation, that he will change you. And you have to go after that. It's like someone who says, okay, I don't want to be overweight anymore. And so now you have to make a decision. I'm going to continue to eat and hope that one day I'll just lose weight, or I'm going to start not taking in things that I know aren't good for me and healthy, not taking in more than I need. And all of a sudden, over time, I'm going to see that I'm going to lose that weight, and I'm going to get to, say, an ideal weight or whatever. That happens.
Been there.
Been there, done that. I mean, you can use it for anything. I mean, you can use it any regular
problem.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. No,
issue.
this is the thing. It doesn't matter what it is in our lives. And, the idea that you're not going to even get rid of a thing in your life and then pick up another one along the way.
Right.
Like this is why Paul called it a marathon. Like our race isn't over until we're dead. Right. So you don't know what you're going to pick up along the way. You don't know what problems you're going to solve. You don't know what pitfalls you're going to have. You know what setbacks are coming. It's the only thing that explains that you can live that kind of life and still feel okay about it. Right. Is Christ working in you and you allowing him to change you and him to show through your life. Right. If that is your goal, then it doesn't matter what comes along your way. Yeah. He's going to go fight for you.
Yeah. And I got to say this too, that as Christians, if you get to the point where you see you're a wretch, like you see that these thoughts are not good, and you don't make a decision to say, okay, I don't want to live this way, and you don't make a decision to start being transformed by the word of God and by your relationship with Christ, I don't believe you'll just stay that way. I believe you will begin to rationalize and you'll go the other direction. I don't think you'll kind of stay in that thing. And the reason I say that is because it doesn't mean you'll necessarily punch the person, but you eventually will find ways to rationalize your thoughts so that you can maintain that in a way that makes you feel good about yourself.
Right.
And that's not going to help the problem.
Really interesting because it's very easy to throw the drug addict under the bus, the alcoholic, the glutton, whatever our problems are. Right. But when you put it that way, it's no different. No. You're just addicted to the idea of punching that person in the back of the head. Right. That's your addiction. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that it's anything that becomes a worldly crutch in your life to allow you to justify, this is what you're saying, justify who you are and how you're living so that you can live the way you want to.
Right. Yeah. And any addiction comes back down to personal lust, desire, or satisfaction. So I have something
and it's a disease.
Oh, it is a disease.
I didn't mean to derail you. I'm sorry.
And you know what's interesting about my disease, for instance? I was trained early on to be sexually perverted. All right. So according to science now, they say that even people that look at porn, their brain starts to transform like somebody who's addicted to crack or addicted to whatever. Okay. Now, granted, I know that that's a physical substance that they're putting in their body. I'm not putting anything physical in my body. It's just all through my eyes.
Scientifically, this all comes down to dopamine.
Right. Yeah. But it still comes back to this.
Right.
So the difference is, though, like for me, I had to fight that through spiritual means.
Thing that would release your dopamine was looking at those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or thinking those thoughts.
Right.
Yeah. So now that I've chosen to take those thoughts captive, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3-5, I take those thoughts captive to the obedience of Christ. And as I've been doing that, and as I've been calling on God to transform me, now those thoughts, even though they come sometimes, I don't like them. I don't want them in my brain anymore.
Right.
So I exclude them. Now, there are times where they'll come, and sometimes I'll go, oh, my body will start to go, oh, I think I like that a little bit. And then I'll see that, and I'll have to confess that and deal with it, and boom, shut it out. But it's something that will continue. So will I always be a sexual pervert? Like someone says, I'll always be an addict. I'll always be a this or that. I don't believe so. I believe that God has delivered me. I believe what's happening in my mind.
You're getting new temptations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe it's the same thing with an alcoholic.
You never murdered anybody, but you might get in traffic and somebody drive you so nuts that you all of a sudden murder them in your mind.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you were always a murderer.
Right.
You just had that temptation right now.
Exactly. So she's going to go to work tomorrow.
Right.
And she's going to have an issue where she's going to feel like punching somebody in the back of the head.
Right.
It's a new temptation, a new day. You got to make a choice.
Yeah.
Every time I got to make a choice every day about my sexual perversion that might tempt me or come into my mind.
Right.
And that choice is not, I'm going to be a better person so God accepts me. That choice is, God, I need you to change this because this is not who I am anymore.
And how actually freeing is that idea?
Right.
That every day we have a new chance.
Yeah.
To kind of, although, like you said, you start to get the rewire up here. Don't let the wiring get too messed up.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you can come back from any kind of addiction. You can come back from being the worst person ever.
Right.
It's the amount of work you're going to have to go through to get there.
Yeah. And you can't let anybody convince you that it's okay. I've heard people, like, sometimes I'll preach a message and I might use a personal illustration of something I've gone through. And I'll have people come up to me and go, Brian, you shouldn't be so hard on yourself. That's crap.
Right.
If God convicts me of something,
right.
You don't you tell me that I shouldn't be hard on myself.
Then you know what? You just had a spot in a sermon where you convicted somebody sitting down, and they had to come up and tell you, "You're okay. You're okay true. Because I'm okay."
That's probably true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know this is wrong in your mind.
So when somebody comes up and goes, "Brian, don't be so hard on yourself," you go, "Let's pray for you."
Right Right. Yeah. So I say, hey, Jesus taught these things. Go with it, but go after him. And go after him with a total abandonment. You have to, because it doesn't work any other way. You can't have one foot in the world and one foot in the kingdom. I found that out over the years. I've tried to flirt in the world and the kingdom.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
You got to jump in. So, all right. I think we're probably good for today, huh?
We had a long one. We're making up for lost time.
That was a good thought, though, Brian. I mean, it brought us into some really good stuff, and we all need to think more about that kind of stuff, because whether it's our thought life or whether it's our actions, as Christians, we need to be willing to say, God, change me.
Right.
So,
moral of the story, and watch out for flying saucers.
Yeah. And if nothing else, I would, if you want to see any kind of alien phenomenon this weekend in Chardon, is the Maple Festival.
Oh.
If you go up there, you'll be sure to see.
Chances are you're going to get a snowstorm.
Yes, definitely.
There'll be a snowstorm.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to see alien something.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
So have a great weekend, and maybe we'll see you next week.
That's hilarious.
It's like going